Thank you, Marcy, but I must remind you this is a not-for-profit, non-commercial operation. Albert Einstein, a wonderful scientist, physicist, once said, "Information and knowledge is important, but it's imagination that makes the world go around." Dennis Barrie has more than an ample supply of this ingredient, and he has another ingredient which I'm so proud of him. It's called courage. Judge in Cincinnati, our friends to the south, threatened Dennis Barrie with a jail sentence for presenting Robert Mapplethorpe photos. He considered them obscene and thought that Dennis should be perhaps considered a sexual deviant. Now, I might also remind you, Dennis, I'm sure you remember, Cincinnati was one of the few cities in America left whose police officers wore jackboots. Jackboots, symbolic of a world of hate and bigotry. Well, he also received a number of death threats. Would you be concerned? Would you be frightened? Dennis, of course, was, and we all would have been. The good news is, Dennis refused to be intimidated, and he was found innocent in a court of law. Dennis Barrie stands here tonight before us, who held to his conviction that America is a nation where freedom of expression is fundamental to our democracy. I first worked with Dennis Barrie at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where we bonded and created a long-term friendship. When I sold my broadcast companies, I think it was kind of ordained that Dennis Barrie and I would work together to build the International Spy Museum in Washington, D.C. So we go from art to rock and roll to espionage to the Jewish Heritage Museum here in Cleveland. Dennis, it was a hoot that 10 years, wasn't it? And now he's just completed building the Mob Museum in Las Vegas, and his career has many, many years to go with many, many projects. Dennis, you richly deserve this prize because you earned it. Thank you.
I'm usually up here in a different role, but it's nice to be up here as a prize winner. And so I thank Milton, I thank the Arts Prize, the jurors, and the nominees. It's an amazing moment. Every time I see all these other people and look at their accomplishments and get moved by what they do on a daily basis, I too am moved. I'm very moved tonight to be among these people and in this city. But I have my written speech. This is part of the 15 seconds that I borrowed from Jonathan, and I'm going to do it. I don't usually read, but I'm going to do it tonight. When my brother and I were kids, our parents, Dave and Evelyn, would drag us to every museum, historic site, and natural wonder they could find within a 5 to 10 day drive of Cleveland. Despite the pain of fighting with my brother in the back seat, those trips changed my life, changed my thinking about what I wanted to do, what I could be. History became my passion, art my love, museums my obsession. I have worked in the museum world ever since my first job at the Smithsonian in 1970, and never thought about doing anything else. In 1990, I saw my museum career and the museum world threatened as my little institution, and it was very little, the Contemporary Arts Center of Cincinnati fought a sometimes lonely but ultimately successful battle for the right of all museums to show controversial work, in this case, the art of Robert Mapplethorpe. It was a very bitter fight, and after it was over, I wasn't sure I would ever be able to work in a museum again. The prospects were dim. I was looking at the real world at a real job. It was very frightening. And then I got a call from a headhunter, asking me whether I was interested in being the director of a new museum in the making, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. What do you say? You know, it was just amazing that I got the call. They say that America is a land where it is possible to get a second chance. Cleveland gave me my second chance. Building the Rock Hall was a dream job and creating a museum like no other in a city that I love. Since the Rock Hall, I have had opportunities I could only have imagined when I was a kid in that back seat. I have worked on some of the most fascinating museum projects in the country. I have met rock stars and rocket scientists, spies and counter-spies, and most recently, a lovable bunch of guys in witness protection. So, they're out there somewhere. So, I got to recover here. So I need to thank some people. I quickly need to thank a lot of people here in the room again for voting for me. I need to thank Milton for giving me my third chance after I left the Rock Hall. I need to thank my family, and especially my sons Ian and Kevin, for giving me focus beyond my job. And I need to thank my wife Kathy for being my best friend and advisor. And my brother for not really beating me up in the car too often. And most of all, I need to thank my parents, Dave and Evelyn, for taking me on those rides and introducing me to the whole world. Thank you.